So I gotta get through it.
So both the defense and the prosecution fully agreed that there needed to be competency hearing because if there was not, this would go on to appeal.
Has anybody ever come to the conclusion that he had the morals?
It has not.
Brian Mitchell had some wild, irrational ideas that seemed like delusions, but were not the product of mental illness.
They're going to find me confident, they're going to find me incompetent.
But more a cocky, arrogant,
I like
narcissistic, religious individual with a lot of religious language.
I advised him and he advised me.
Most psychiatrists can, they understand.
The state case stopped at competency. At competency, they both went to state mental hospitals until such time as they were deemed competent to stay in trial.
It wasn't until 2010 that they go forward with the federal trial because of all the delays in state court and him being declared incompetent to stand trial while he's sitting down at the state hospital watching Charmed on TV every day.
The man charged with kidnapping Elizabeth Smart is now set to stand trial.
He gave himself away enough so that by the time he was tried in federal court, that they just weren't buying his act anymore.
If I were to point to any particular reason for his prompt conviction, I would say it's Elizabeth Smart who deserves all the credit.
I said, Elizabeth, that jury's not going to let you down. They will see through his bull. He's singing in court. He's spinning around. He's calling out to Jesus. It's a charade. You stand up there and go toe-to-toe with him.
He picked the wrong girl because she's extremely bright and she was a marvelous witness.
Almost 9 years ago, the kidnapping of 14-year-old Elizabeth.
12 jurors found Brian David Mitchell guilty of kidnapping. Elizabeth Smart smiled today in court when that guilty verdict was read.
I was pretty nervous going into court, but I remember when I did see him and he was shackled, I realized that he did not have power over me anymore, that I had gone on with my life.
I hope that not only is this an example that justice can be served in America, but that it is possible to move on after something terrible has happened.
The man convicted of kidnapping Elizabeth Smart will spend the rest of his life in prison.
I was grateful that, he's going to be in prison for the rest of his life.
He would not be out on the streets and be able to hurt another girl or young boy or whatever.
There will be no sentence appropriate for what this guy did. He's sitting in a cell somewhere watching color TV, getting 3 squares a day, okay? Is that punishment for what he did to Elizabeth Smart? I don't think so.
One of the biggest reasons why I want to share my story in this way is because I have met so many other survivors, so many other victims who can't share their story, who are scared to share their story. I want them to know that they're not alone. I want them to know that life can be wonderful and that no matter what's happened, life is still worth living, that you can find happiness again. It may not be easy. In fact, it probably won't be easy, but it'll be worth it.
Elizabeth has had a strength and a desire to see that survivors don't remain victims.
She is the one that says, we will survive. We will fight back. We have work. She's helped us change laws. She got married to a wonderful guy, and she is the poster girl for survivors.
But you have had the strength and the resilience to make this work your life. How difficult?
Getting married and having a family was something I'd look forward to my whole life. When I was kidnapped, I felt like that was taken away.
I was very concerned about her relating to boys that she wouldn't want to date or go to the school dances, but it never seemed to be a problem because she went to every dance and had lots of friends and life was good.
I was able to go back to high school. I was able to go on to college. I mean, I was able to say, yes to boys that I wanted to go out with, or no, I could say no to boys that I didn't want to go out with. Matthew and I were both at the Missionary Training Center. Both of us had been assigned to serve as missionaries in the Paris, France mission. He didn't know anything about me. I was just another girl, and he genuinely liked me for me. I never had to wonder if he liked me just so he could say he was friends with Elizabeth Smart or knew Elizabeth Smart.
I mean, I heard whispers here and there, but nothing that I really paid attention to. She actually opened up to the whole classroom about her experience. It was probably a couple of weeks into it. I'm pretty sure most of them already knew the story. It was news to me. It was the first time I'd ever heard it.
He and I were the only two going to Paris. Boy missionaries served for 2 years, and girl missionaries just served for 18 months. He was he's like, so, will you go on a date with me in 2 years?
I didn't want to get my hopes up too much either, because 2 years is a long time. I'm from a town called Aberdeen, Scotland. So when she got home, I asked her, would you want to come out and, meet my family and things like that. And it was just, a shot in the dark, kind of see what she'd say.
I guess I've always kind of believed in fairy tales and dreams coming true. Certainly no nightmares do. But I think I thought, well, what do I have to lose?
As soon as I picked her up from the airport, I knew that we were going to get married.
It's a miracle that really she could go forward and get married, that she did want to have children, and it's a miracle over and over and over. How are you okay with your husband? How are you okay with men? I don't know. How do you have sex? Probably the same way everybody else does.
There's nothing that holds us back as a married couple. She's always been comfortable around me. There's nothing that's affected my relationship with her or vice versa.
My kidnapping isn't something that I think about every day. It happened, and yes, it's affected me. It's made me who I am today. I'm happy now. I have a family now. And I'm in a really good place in my life now, and so I don't regret not screaming out. Do I wish I had said something? Do I wish I could have done something? Do I wish I could have cut my time being kidnapped all basically in half? Yes, of course. But at the time, I didn't know that. I mean, I survived. I made it back. I mean, I did what I had to do to survive.
I'm pretty good at the way
But
thing
we're
like that.
gorgeous.
EVS non-circle thing that
I can't believe it.
then I'm doing practice so I will just show you.
We only did video 1, and then never again.
You picked them first. This shipper, this shipper is
All it took was 10 minutes for the idea of peace in Europe to be hanging by a thread. What should have been a diplomatic meeting instead sent shockwaves around the globe, making it seem inevitable that the U.S. will withdraw aid from Ukraine. But what happens next? Will the United States step away from its allies? And if it does, what will that mean for Ukraine, Europe, and the future of global stability? The most immediate crisis Europe now faces is the geopolitical fallout from America's withdrawal from Ukraine. In early February 2025, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei warned the world that the U.S. and the West cannot be trusted to keep their promises, pointing directly to Ukraine's abandonment as proof. This is already undermining a careful network of partnerships and cooperation agreements between the U.S., NATO, and global alliances. It raises serious doubts among nations that once relied on American security guarantees. Now, many are asking themselves, can they really count on the U.S. anymore? This uncertainty opens the door for China and Russia to expand their influence, drawing more nations into their orbit. Instead of creating stability, America's withdrawal may actually increase the chances of a global conflict. But for Europe, the real danger isn't just shifting alliances. It's what the White House just did to nuclear non-proliferation. Or to put it more bluntly, the United States just gave the entire world a reason to build more nuclear weapons. It's well known by now that after the fall of the Soviet Union, a large number of nuclear weapons fell into Ukrainian hands. If they had kept those weapons, they would have been one of the world's major nuclear powers. But under intense American and Western pressure, they agreed to give up those weapons in exchange for guarantees that their sovereignty wouldn't be violated. Since then, it has become abundantly clear this was a mistake. Europe's nuclear headache, courtesy of the White House, is that states which have either nuclear weapons or ambitions for nuclear weapons, nations like North Korea and Iran, now have zero incentives to give up their nuclear weapons programs. America can no longer be trusted to keep its commitments. And these nations have seen how readily the new America allows even democratic nations to be swallowed up by their aggressive neighbors. Likewise, nations with no nuclear weapons programs are now seriously considering the need to acquire weapons of their own. Nations such as Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Japan have expressed interest in nuclear weapons to one degree or another, but until recently had American security guarantees to fall back on. It was the Great Exchange to limit nuclear proliferation and reduce the risk of nuclear war. The U.S. positioned itself as the ultimate security guarantor, offering ironclad assurances to its allies. Yet, just 45 days into the new administration, the U.S. abandoned its commitments, proving just how quickly those guarantees can disappear. This creates a big problem for countries like Saudi Arabia and Japan, who face regional powers that either have nuclear weapons or
I have
acquire
to
them.
put on
At the moment,
Cassie.
Japan is a firm ally of the U.S., but there's no guarantee that the new administration will not change its
What are you talking about?
alliance when it's no longer convenient for the White House. Even worse, the White House's willingness to court and even side with aggressive dictators who invade their neighbors sends a chilling message to U.S. allies. For Japan, the implications are especially dire. With China's growing imperial ambition,